But the time katanas were used as the samurai's main weapon was only during the Edo period. 皆さんこんにちは and welcome to Let's Ask Shogo. Have you ever watched the top 10 horrifying facts you didn't know about samurai? As pointed out in the comments section or in other videos, the facts introduced in this video are a little over-exaggerated. There may have been some samurais as described, but I'm pretty sure that it's exceedingly unlikely that all samurais were gay and that they killed just for fun. So today, as a katana sword trainee studying about samurai history and culture, I would like to introduce my version of 5 facts you didn't know about samurai. The facts I have chosen out are all true facts, which are not over-exaggerated, and ones that many people may not know about. They may not be as shocking as the original video, but they surely are true. I will count down the facts based on my scale of how surprising they are, so stay tuned till the end. それでは本日も参りましょう。Number 1. The word samurai represent different things according to the era. Today, the word samurai basically represents any Japanese warrior. But depending on the era of Japanese history, the definition of samurai was different. The noun samurai comes from the verb sabrao, which means to serve. When the samurais first appeared in the Heian era, they served near the emperor, the royal family, and the aristocrats. They took charge of the imperial court, and they were also responsible for guarding and suppressing conflicts. Coming into the Kamakura and the Muromachi period, the shogunate era, the samurai administration was established. In the Heian period, samurais were those who served the imperial family and the aristocrats. But in the samurai society, warriors that served the shogun were samurais. Once the Muromachi shogunate lost its power due to internal conflict, the samurais of each region rose up to become the next leader of Japan. This war period that lasted for 150 years is called the Civil War era, or Sengoku era in Japanese. During this time period, there were many conflicts in various places, and the definition of samurai changed completely. The term samurai, which was used for those who served the emperor, aristocrats, or shoguns, began to represent any warrior that fought in battle. The first samurai that conquered all of Japan, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, is very famous for originally being a peasant. Until the Civil War era, it was impossible for a person in a low class like a peasant to become a samurai. Once this era ended and the Edo period started, a strict class system was established by the shogunate to have better control over the people. The samurais again became the upper class that worked for the government. After the Meiji Restoration in 1868, the shogunate system and the samurai class were abolished. However, during the 10-year Civil War, there were men who still called themselves samurais, fighting to decide who should lead the new westernized Japan. It is said that the real last samurai was Saigo Takamori, who died in 1877. So hopefully you can understand that the term samurai means very different people according to which era you are talking about. Today in Japan, when we say samurai, most of the time, we're referring to the samurais in the Civil War era or in the Edo period. This is because these two eras are the most popular in Japanese history, and because there are many books and dramas about them. Number 2, Bushido was written after the samurais were gone. If you are a fan of samurai history, I'm very sure you have heard Bushido before, both in and out of Japan. This concept became very popular due to a book written by Nitobe Inazo in 1899 called Bushido, the Soul of Japan. Wait, 1899? Yes, I just explained that the last samurai died in 1877, so this book was written after there were no more samurais. Nitobe Inazo was a Japanese educator who was active from the Meiji era to the pre-war Showa era. He is also the first president of Tokyo Women's Christian University. His face was on the 5,000 yen bill in the past, so you can understand how famous and important he was in Japan. He was inspired to write this book when he was studying in Germany. There was a Belgian legal scholar who asked, how does Japan, without religious education, teach morals to its offspring? Nitobe wanted to write a book that will be an answer to this question. However, the description in this book, which argues that Bushido is a morally noble spirit comparable to Western chivalry, is conspicuously criticized as being merely a virtual image created by nationalism in the modern Meiji era. As a katana trainee and a student of samurai history, I personally think that this book is very informative and interesting, how it explains about the way of the samurai and its connection to modern Japanese characteristics. But at the same time, the content is somewhat too idealistic. Samurais all couldn't have been like the humble and strict image that Nitobe explains. They were mere humans like us too. I think we can't ignore the fact that scholars like Nitobe Inazo in this era were desperate to go against Western powers by exaggerating the beauty of Japanese culture. Number 3. Harakiri wasn't just simple suicide of stabbing your stomach. Harakiri was not just a simple way of suicide for samurais. During the Civil War era, Toyotomi Hideyoshi invaded Takamatsu Castle in Okayama Prefecture. Hideyoshi said that if the lord of the castle killed himself, he would have mercy on the lives of the other soldiers. The lord of the castle, Shimizu Muneharu, madly committed suicide by cutting his stomach. In other words, committed harakiri to protect his men. Hideyoshi was impressed with his bravery, and this is how harakiri became an honorable way to die, instead of mere suicide. Many say that the courage to commit harakiri is the manifestation of the spirit of Bushido. From there, in the Edo period, it was established as a formal method of death penalty for the samurais. Harakiri was considered a way to die with honor, protecting the monarch. It would show loyalty to the clan and the family name in order not to put dirt on them. Even if something goes wrong inside the clan, if someone commits harakiri, the issue will end, as if things were settled without accountability. Therefore, it was often said that one is allowed to commit harakiri, rather than one is ordered to commit harakiri. So if a samurai's crime was just a brutal and disgraceful one, they would simply get their head cut off, which was thought as a very miserable way to die. Harakiri was established as a ritual in the Edo period. How to spend the time before the harakiri ritual, the layout and the direction of the room where the ritual is held, the clothes to wear, the last meal to eat, the correct way to hold the sword were all fixed. However, in the latter half of the Edo period, there were samurais who did not know the ritual of harakiri due to the continuation of peaceful times, or samurais who did not have the courage to cut their stomachs. They were given wooden swords or folding fans instead of a katana, and when they placed their hands on these items, they simply got their heads cut off. Unfortunately, it seems that not all samurais were as brave as we imagined them to be. And lastly, let me explain the reason why it had to be the stomach they cut. In Bushido, written by Nitobe Inazo, it is explained that ancient autonomy believed that the abdomen contains the human soul and affection. Therefore, harakiri was meant to show sincerity and innocence by cutting one's stomach where the soul lays. So harakiri has a very long history, various meanings, and a deep relationship with Bushido. Number 4. Samurais were more poor than most people in Japan. The samurais, especially in the Edo period, were quite poor. But I was explaining they were in the top class of society, right? How could this be possible? The Edo period, lasted for 265 years. And it is famous as a peaceful era where there were almost any wars over 2 centuries. Such a miracle was possible due to multiple factors, but a major reason was the strict rule of the Edo shogunate, the Tokugawa family. Their policies and laws to control Japan was clever in keeping the people in their place, and from them starting rebellions to overthrow the government. For example, they made a class system that divided the people into 4 classes. The samurais on top, followed by the peasants, craftsmen, and lastly, merchants. But wouldn't you imagine the peasants to be on the bottom and the merchants to be in a higher class? They kept the merchants in the lowest class on purpose because they were the ones with the most money. The government knew that if the merchants were put in a higher class, they will cause problems in the future. This class system helped to nurture the idea among Japanese people that having and earning money is a vulgar act. So the samurais believed that in order to protect their honor, they had to live simply without greed towards money. That's not all with the Tokugawa family's sly policymaking. In order to force the samurais to stay poor, the shogunate created traditions for samurais to use large amounts of money once in a while. For example, there was a rule in which the samurais would travel back and forth between their territory and the capital Edo every other year, as a way to prove their loyalty to the shogunate. This long trip to Edo, especially the samurais living in rural areas, took months of time and cost a fortune. The Satsuma clan in the Kyushu region, the southern part of Japan, was the farthest away from Edo, and it took 2 months and about 15 billion yen. Also, expenses for rituals, lifestyles, and gifts to maintain a noble samurai style were frequently used as necessary expenses. There were many samurais who secretly had side businesses like making umbrellas, painting lanterns, and raising crickets and goldfish as pets. But again, in order to protect their pride, this was top secret, and they would never do these things in front of people. Number 5. The samurai's main weapon wasn't the katana. When you imagine samurais fighting, wouldn't it be a katana? But the time katanas were used as the samurai's main weapon was only during the Edo period, the last period the samurais existed. For about 80% of samurai history, the samurais mainly used bows and arrows, the spear, and also the gun. This is because on the battlefield, these were the most efficient weapons. I trained in Iaido, the katana martial art, but we are taught that a battle with katanas will be done within a tatami mat distance. One tatami mat is just 182 centimeters, so you can understand how close you have to be to your opponent in order to attack with your sword. I would say it would be very strange and unusual to try to use such a weapon with short range on the battlefield. So although the samurais did have katanas with them in the times of war too, it was the last weapon they used in a close combat. My master was saying that the role of the katana was more of a symbol as a warrior, a kind of amulet. In the peaceful Edo period, always having 2 katanas, one long and one short, was required by the law. It was a privilege and a symbol of being a noble warrior. However, even in this era, the samurais rarely had a chance to draw their swords. It is because, unless you are able to prove there's a good reason to kill that person, you will be punished severely. You even needed an eyewitness to prove its legitimacy. If you fail to persuade the government office, you will be sentenced to death yourself. Your family will all lose their class as a samurai, and all your property will be taken away. Your name will forever be remembered as a shame to your family. So the samurais were taught, if you're not prepared to die yourself, don't pull out your katana. This is how rare the katana was actually used in Japanese history. And lastly, today's conclusion. I introduced 5 facts you didn't know about samurai. Number 1. The word samurai represents different things according to the era. Depending on the era, the definition of samurais changed from servants of the imperial family to the warriors that worked for shogunate and a social class in society. Number 2. Bushido was written after the samurais were gone. Bushido, the soul of Japan, was written in 1899 after the samurais were gone. Although it is a timeless masterpiece that is still read by millions of people, the content is conspicuously criticized as being merely a virtual image created by nationalism. Number 3. Harakiri wasn't just simple suicide of stabbing your stomach. Harakiri was an honorable way to die among the samurais, as a way to protect your clan's honor. In the Edo period, harakiri became a ritualistic ceremony with everything from what you wear to what you eat lastly, and how to handle the katana to cut your stomach with. Number 4. Samurais were poorer than most people in Japan. In the Edo period, the Edo shogunate kept the samurais poor in order to have better control of them. They were taught that earning and having money was vulgar, and they had multiple ceremonies and traditions where they had to use a great amount of money in order to show that they were noble men. Number 5. Samurai's main weapon wasn't the katana. Bows and arrows and spears were the samurai's main weapon on the battlefield. Although the samurais in every era carried katanas with them, they hardly had the occasion to use it. It was thought more of a symbol of a warrior or a kind of amulet. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you learned anything new from watching this video, please hit the like button to let me know. And it will be great if you can share this video to your friends and family. And my goal is to achieve 10,000 subscribers by July 2021, so your help would mean a lot. Thanks again, and I'll see you in my next video. どうもありがとうございました。Everyone, once again, thank you very much for watching this video and welcome to the Omake Talk. So, in today's video, I talked about Harakiri, seppuku again. And some of you may have watched my video about the difference between Harakiri and seppuku. And there were a few questions and some comments on that video, so I'd like to answer to these comments. So, number 1, a lot of people told me that isn't it a tanto that you use for Harakiri rituals? And that's correct. That's perfect. I need to apologize. Katana, especially in Japanese, if you call it nihonto, it's like a general term for all kinds of katanas, because the katana that I think everyone has in mind, like the one that I have in this picture here I'm holding on to, is the official term for it is uchi katana, actually. So when I say katana, I was actually meaning like the sword. I mean, like any Japanese sword, actually. But correctly, it's tanto. So I'm really sorry for the making it a little bit confusing. Yes. And another thing is, a lot of people told me, when you do harakiri, you commit harakiri, there'll be another person called kaishaku helper that would cut your neck off, right? And some people told me, no, you don't completely cut your neck off. You leave one skin left so the head doesn't drop. That's correct as well, exactly. Because as I explained in today's video too, if you get your head completely cut off and if it like rolls on the ground, that's a little bit scary, but if that happens, that's again very miserable. So the helper needed a lot of techniques actually to just leave one skin left. It was called kubi no kawa ichimai, it's called one skin of the neck, it's called. But only very, very few experienced and trained samurais were able to do this. So most of the time, it was really difficult, it was said. But people like us who train in Iaido, there is a kata, which is a fixed sword movement. There's one kata called the kaishaku. And oh yeah, there was someone who talked about this too. You actually swing the katana with one hand, actually quite gently. Compared to a regular strike, so you don't damage the person too much, and so you don't have to completely cut his neck off. Yes, so that's, again, I need to apologize, that's correct, yes. And lastly, I wanted to add a little bit more information to today's story.
Again, today I talked about that if a samurai didn't have courage or didn't know how to do the Harakiri ritual, they would be given a fan instead of a katana, right? Then you might think, why would it be a fan? I talked about wooden swords too. That happened too, but why would you use a fan instead of a katana? That doesn't make any sense, right? Actually, the fans, the Japanese folding fans, they originally come from China. And in China, these fans were items for leaders, for warrior leaders, soldier leaders, army leaders, to give order to their men. So that came into Japan, and in Japan they were also used as these items too, but they were actually a symbol of the katana in Japanese history. So it's funny, like me, I train in No theater, and in No theater, the actors all have fans with them, and they hold on to it while they dance, they hold on to it while you sing, but that actually represents the katana. So No theater was practiced by samurais, but you're not allowed to have katana swords on stage, right? So they would have the fans instead of the katanas to kind of represent, appeal that you're still a samurai. It's the same in tea ceremonies too. In tea ceremony, you're not allowed to bring a katana into the tea room, so you would actually bring a fan, a folding fan instead of a sword, also to use it for polite manners, and there's rules with fans too. But so these are kind of like the meanings of fans in Japanese culture, and that's the reason why they were able to have fans instead of katanas and make sense. Why would it be katana? That's the reason why. You also use fans in Japanese traditional dancing and some of the other traditional culture as well, I believe. So I just wanted to add that information at the end. All right. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video too, and thank you very much. ありがとうございました. Goodbye.